nonsense. Like, saludos. Welcome to TamboraDialogues, where we honor our rich Latina history and renativize ourselves by decolonizing all aspects of our lives. A major part of renativizing is connecting with our ancestral values, recognizing our shared responsibility to help others, not just ourselves. And so today we are joined by Milka Santana, founder of Perfecto Labs, who will share why she left New York finance world behind to honor her father's legacy by creating a school for coding, robotics, and AI for children in La República Dominicana. Milka, thank you so much for joining the Drum Circle today.
Hello, hola everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Of course, our pleasure. So, full transparency here, Milka and I, have known each other now for a little bit. Her sister and I are good friends, and we did a fellowship. Gosh, it feels like forever ago, but back in 2020. And Milka's sister is Milka Santana, and she's up in New York still, doing the good fight and doing the good work in New York City for the homeless population. So, Milka, big changes are often fueled by even bigger inspiration. What was your inspiration to leave the world of big finance in New York City and come to your hometown of Yamasa?
I think it was just a big storm that happened. I usually like to talk about the biggest inspiration, which was my father. The reason that the school is named Perfecto Labs is because his name was Perfecto Santana. My father was a typical Dominican man, let's just say, right? He went to the States in the 80s, left a very, I would say, comfortable academic job of being math teacher and director of several schools in the Dominican Republic. And he went to New York, to do what a lot of Dominican mothers and fathers do, which is, work 3 jobs while still was going to school. So when I started Perfecto Labs, unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. So I was just driven by his absolute mission through even the times that he was sick, through to educate himself and to educate others.
That's that's incredible. How can you share with us like a little bit more detail about your dad? Like what were his influences, right? You mentioned that he was a mathematics professor. How did that come about? Where was he raised? Was he raised in Yamasa, or was he raised, elsewhere?
I have to one day write a book about my father because his story is truly super inspirational. So he was raised in El Peralvillo, which is like it's a town that is next to Yamasa. And my father, even the other day, a couple of months ago, I was in my house and one of his friends passed by and he told me how my father grew up. He grew up extremely poor. My father used to carry water for people so he could literally buy books. He was very much since early on. He was just so yearning that need to learn and to be educated. I mean, his family, even in a town, even in a village, what was Peralvillo at that time, he was considered, one of the poorest person around, and he managed to do that. To rise through the ranks in the Dominican Republic of becoming a math teacher. Everybody in town, and maybe not now because now it's being a little bit, but the older people, everybody in the town knows him as the math teacher. He taught math to everybody. You go to the villages. My uncle told me, in the 80s, he came from New York and he brought calculators to everybody. Could you believe that? Like somebody that would say, you know what, which was like computers at that time, right? And go to the villages and say, I'm just going to bring calculators to everybody. I've been to hair salons in New York where people are like, "You look like somebody. Are you the daughter of Perfecto Santana?" He tutored my daughter math. My father would just go around tutoring people math. He was just an exceptional. He cared deeply about education, and he worked extremely hard
Yeah.
for that.
It sounds like your dad figured out what, Aristotle was trying to process, right? Which is, what is the essence of life, right? And the essence of life is to really serve others and to do good. And it sounds like, your father did good for others, right? Just out of compassion and understanding that there is a shared responsibility. And it seems like you're continuing to do the same. But obviously, being in New York and spending time in China and Thailand and India like you have, all of those different comforts, it's kind of hard to, to give up, right? To then go back and support children in a community that may not have all of those comforts that we may have been accustomed to. How was that transition, for you, going from New York to China to Thailand to India and then coming to La República Dominicana?
I think, was it hard? Yes and no. You have to understand my life. I always think that the reason that it is a lot easier for me to live in Yamasa is because I have had many different comforts in life, and it has not been enough. It has not been enough for my spirit. It has not been enough for my soul. So when people, talk about, wow, you did this, you left banking and now you're in Yamasa, I say, well, it's an amazing privilege that I had to be able to reach, to live. I lived in London, I lived in Hong Kong, to live in all these cities, to live very comfortably. But I had to go through that to realize that it doesn't really, you could have all those things and still have like a deep hole inside of your heart. So yes, it was hard as far as, the water situation, the electricity situation, normal situation. It was hard. I have stories for days, but at the end of the day, it's probably the easiest decision that I've done. And I think, to give more details, it's not so much about the change of the everyday needs. It's about when you have something in mind. It's like if you put a bunch of challenges in front and you almost don't see them because you're so zoomed in. I was so zoomed in those kids when I went to Yamasa in 2020 that all the other, the heat and everything else just seemed like smaller things to the big mission that I have in life, which is to educate children of color, and right now Dominican children.
I thank you, Milka. I really love that. Because I too, as you know, made the transition to the Dominican Republic, last year. And one of the questions that I was asked is the same question I asked you, and it was just like, no, like I don't miss any of it because I was so centered on coming here to my land, to my people, to my culture, and giving that opportunity to my kids and figuring out, okay, todo lo que yo aprendí, everything that I learned in my travels in the world, cómo lo puedo aplicar aquí? Like, how can I apply it here? How can I uplift my community, right? Because I had the privilege of access and everything else that came with like an education and the American dream. But my American dream is actually here in Republica Dominicana.
Hey,
Right?
oh, I love that. I feel the same way.
Exactly. Y sí, y se nota. So tell me a little bit about, the children that, you care for and you encourage as part of your work at Perfecto Labs.
So just to give you a bit of background, in 2020, I went and I started with 7 children, and now we have 70 children.
Wow.
The waiting list is huge, huge. We get parents all the time knocking on our doors, especially now that every time that we get some press in the Dominican Republic, there's probably, I don't know, the waiting list is definitely a lot larger than what we have right now, maybe a couple of hundred parents.
Wow.
The children are extraordinary. They are smart and they want something huge for themselves. I think that we don't realize that for example, when I was in Yamasa, I left Yamasa when I was 10 years old. We didn't have social media. We didn't have a lot of the things that they have now. So they see the world outside, and they realize that they want some of those things. A lot of them come from very far. They're between the ages of 10 and 16. I'm thinking of a little girl right now. She is, you would see her and she's tall. You would think that she's, like a 17-year-old, and she's 13 years old. And she comes from very, very far. So her parents bought her a motor. Okay. And we have a 13-year-old riding a motor to be able to go to the school. From riding it for like 30 minutes. It's just, and I have stories like that. It's just amazing. Their ability to learn to code in an environment that it's just like, it's almost like living in a village. It's beyond me. It makes me feel so inspired to be able to do more.
And tell me, what is the structure like? Are they coming to you like after school? Are they coming to you in the mornings? How many teachers are there? Is it you? Like, how are you coordinating all of these things?
So when I went to Yamasa in 2020, it was me by myself. Yo cogí 3 little robots, and I brought them to Yamasa, and I just started in the second floor of my house. Now we have a team. We have a team of about, it keeps growing. The actual teachers are 5, but then we have a team of like, I think almost 10 people right now.
Okay.
They go to school Monday. The school's open Monday through Thursday and then Saturday. So it's an after school program right now, because they go to school now or to Perfecto Labs from 4 to 6:30, and then during the weekend it is open the whole day, because the coding teachers come from Santo Domingo during the weekends. And they take not only coding and robotics, but they also take English and math. Next year, we are trying to speak with schools because we need more hours. So ultimately, what I want to build, and we could talk about that later, but I want to be a full-time school that we have them there from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
So then you would incorporate all other academics into the school, in addition to what you're doing.
Yeah, but focus. I really do believe that sometimes we could talk for it. You have how many? 2 boys?
2 boys.
Yeah. Obviously, I come from banking, but I have a lot of opinions around education, and one of them is that I think that the education system tries to focus on too many things at the same time instead of just zoom into one thing. So our thing would be, technology, and then allow kids to realize what I call their superpower. So if your superpower is not technology, that's fine, but you have to make sure that you're the absolute best on that superpower. So that's the idea.
Right. So, what I've obviously is, two kids here in the Dominican Republic, and like you said, there's a lot coming at the kids, and there's a lot of structure, right? There's a lot of structure in terms of rules about authority, etc. It's very different from like back in New York City, where there's the teacher, and then you don't challenge the teacher's thinking, you just listen to your authority. The way I was raised aquí en la República Dominicana, it's like, no, you ask a question. Like if you feel like you're not understanding, or you feel that maybe there's an error, you ask the question. And so I'm curious if you're trying, as part of like the curriculum, incorporating some of that independent thinking, and framing for the kids. Like, you have your voice, you have an ability to be independent, you have an opinion, we want you to use it and to question everything that comes at you. Is that something that you all are trying
Oh,
to incorporate?
yes. um, the education in not only I actually disagree slightly with you. I think that this is not Dominican Republic thing. I think this is a world thing. I think the education system is created in some ways to create ships, like just people that just follow, right? Not to create thinking, revolutionary beings that are about to, destroy the status quo, which is what I want to create. So our school is quite different. We focus on doing, right. So there is not a lot of like sitting down listening to the teacher. There has to be some of that, but most of it is always doing with the robots, right? That's why I love technology, because it's never about just sitting down there. It's always using your hands and then using technology to be able to connect those two, right? Even in math classes, we have a mathematics lab where we do not, it's a room full of different math objects where you do not use numbers, and you have all these objects to use math. But to your point, I think that I'm always thinking of things in order to we don't have a lot of rules, to make sure that the kids are, it's more of a creative process, right? One of the things that we're doing, just to answer your question more specifically, is that so we are starting actually like a podcast, but this podcast is more about letting kids express themselves, and their ideas. What do they think about school? What do they think about a school lunch? What do they think about the fact that in the Dominican Republic, wearing your curly hair out in schools, I don't know if you know this, Erasma, but in the Dominican Republic, wearing your curly hair out in school is not following the rules. You could have a little, more European looking girl that has straight hair and she could wear her hair down. You have somebody like us with a lot of hair, it is not allowed. You have to pick it up. How do they feel about the uniform? How do they feel about the fact that every single year they're taking to El Acuario? How do they feel about so many different things that I want to, for them to speak their minds through it?
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's the difference, right? The dichotomy, right, between like the public school system that I've noticed in La República Dominicana, and then the private school system, right? So when we arrived and we're looking for schools for our boys, we visited quite a few, both public and private. And in the public schools, which are really centered, around the Catholic kind of like infrastructure and teachings, right, and rules, it was very, very strict. You're wearing uniforms, you have to dress a certain way, boys have to cut their hair really, really short. And as see, yo tengo my curls, mis rizos, mi colochos, whatever you want to call them, and so do my boys. And so when they asked the question, I was just like, ask whatever question you want. And they asked the question, in one of the public schools, how are we allowed to wear our hair the way natural, the way it is? And they said, well, no, you have to cut it. And then, we went to a private school that they ended up going to, and they asked a question there. Are we allowed to wear our hair the way we want to? And they were like, you're an individual. You wear your hair however you want.
Oh, wow.
And so they're like, afterwards, we all convened and we had a conversation. They were like, yeah, we're going to go to this school
Yeah.
that told us they're okay with us being who we are, not that other school. So
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're doing that you're reframing, you're reshaping what education really should be for kids. It should be freedom. It should be, an ability to ask questions. It's an ability to shape even their own learning. And the fact that you're using all these different tools to learn math, because you don't have to learn math just by, looking at a blackboard and then, following, the structure, but it's actually like interactive. And that's fabulous, because then it becomes part of your everyday and you don't get the question that I get, how is math going to help me, in the future? And I was like, it's connected to everything, right? But you're showing the kids, and that's so important. I love that.
Thank you.
Es tan importante. So can you tell us a little bit about, like, you mentioned that you're thinking about adding like different facets to your programming. And you were often quoted as saying that coding and robotics are the future. So what experiences have shaped your thinking in that respect?
I think that, I come from a background in finance and then started teaching myself to code on my own and realized the amazing opportunity that coding has, right? Like, you could take any child from any village, town, anywhere in the world and teach them to code, and you have created a self-sufficient human. I am in the background. There's some nonprofits that that teach children, that feed children. I have never been of that mentality. Of course they're necessary, but my thing is not about that. My thing is about how one, I give you a skill. So technology is extremely important. I give you a skill, coding, you learn it, and you, for the rest of your life, as of now, you have a guaranteed job, basically. Because we're human beings and we need to be able to know how to feed ourselves.
Right.
But then aside from that is, coding by itself doesn't do anything. Ultimately, the big idea with Perfecto Labs is to create kids that have open minds, right? To create kids that know themselves, that know where they come from, and that know that they have a limitless, what I call a limitless mentality, which is that they know that they could do whatever they want. We just use technology as a as an avenue to get us there, just as you could use anything else, just as you could use environmental studies, just as you could use anything else. But we just use coding because I do really, really feel that it's just, I wouldn't say the easiest way, because learning to code is certainly not easy, but is a very efficient way that they could just literally, within a couple of years, transform their lives and the lives of the entire family.
I love that. And Milka, how are you incorporating, because you mentioned that they're also learning English, right? So and potentially other foreign languages. So how are you enhancing that learning around, let's say AI and 3D printing and robotics and coding with like the foreign languages?
Well, right now they're like obviously coding. So the way that coding works is that it is in English. So all the like conditional statements is always like, if something happened, if X, then. So they have to learn the coding. They have to learn English or at least those words to learn coding. We have
Okay.
a separate class for that is an English class. English class is a program that we call it like an immersion program. It's not a regular English class. We really believe that kids learn language through their interests. So we just show them a lot of series, a lot of movies. They have a reading room that they sit down, four of them, and then they talk. They have somebody read to them because we want to make sure that they understand the beauty of reading. They also have a teacher they're all over the world, and they basically talk to them through Zoom in groups of four. Again, they talk to them. They have conversations for 30 minutes a day. So basically, our school is not really like a regular school that kids go here, a group of 30 kids go there, a group of 30 kids there. It's mainly like a center where kids, depending on a specific schedule, take different classes. So some kids will be taking in a math lab. There's 4 kids there talking to the tutor. There's some kids there in the reading room, or we call the reading lounge. There's some kids playing with math, right? So that's the idea, to create more of like open way of developing kids' own curiosity.
That's fabulous. And tell me, how are you supporting all of this work that's happening in Yamasa, in Perfecto Lab? We want our audience to know so that they can mire. Let's dig deep into our pockets, folks. Yeah, this is about supporting. Yes, let's go.
Let's dig deep. So we have a GoFundMe page. I probably, in GoFundMe, if you go Perfecto Labs, you'll find it. We managed to raise this year, the program is 8 months. We managed to raise about a 20K or so. Next year's budget is bigger, a lot bigger. Yeah, but basically it's a combination of the money that we have raised. I just did the expenses, and I'm very open about it. We have the program so far this year is about 40K in expenses. 20K comes from mainly Dominicans in New York, and then 20K comes from me. So I have a full-time job, and I basically finance a lot of it.
Okay. But your hope is that, you would eventually find, not find, but be able to expand the stream, right? The flow of support that comes to you, hopefully from, the government here. Are you listening? ¿Están escuchando? Gobierno Dominicano, vamos. So apoyo de la República Dominicana directamente del gobierno. But also, like Dominicans back in the States who understand, the importance of this and want to do good in the world, and everybody else that's listening that wants to do good in the world. This is definitely a powerful investment. So that's great. So this is an opportunity for us to share more about you, your work, what you're doing at Perfecto Labs, and hopefully connect more people to it and get some more support. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things that we talk about as part of TamboraDialogues is, as I mentioned at the beginning, is connecting to our ancestral values, right? So the values of, shared responsibility, the values of family, the values of compassion. It's interesting. I read, it's been maybe a year ago. I read there's such a thing as the Gallup has like an emotional survey, like happiness survey that they do every year. And they basically, ask people in different countries all around the world about their level of happiness and joy. And not surprisingly, United States is not in the top 10 or the top 20 or the top 30, but many Latin American countries are in the top 10. And the reason for that is because of how we center, compassion, and acts of love for each other. And this is definitely, what you're doing is an act of love. And so I want to ask you before we close, like, what is your vision? And you mentioned a little bit of this, for Perfecto Labs, but what is your ultimate vision for the lab, and how can we at Tambora and those of us listening, support this effort?
So the program has two visions. The first one is to create the best school in the Dominican Republic, and the second one is to expand in a digital way, which we are already doing it, to create coding for Spanish-speaking kids in the Dominican Republic and throughout Latin America. Um, uh, the first one, I think it's very important to me, and Erasma and everybody that's listening, you're welcome to contact me, Milka at perfectolabs.org, and and come to visit the school, because you think about this little school in Yamasa. Oh, how nice! She's helping some poor kids. Uh, our school is designed very, very different. We have robots that are worth $400 each. We have 3D printers. We have projectors. Every single room in our classroom has an AC. And the school itself has a bunch of toys and inter ping pong table. It's an extremely revolutionary idea for Yamasa, for Monte Plata, and even for the Dominican Republic. So, but we're just getting started, right? So my vision for the program is to develop that. We're building a super, technology center in the second floor that's going to be open. And I really want Perfecto Labs to become the best school. And it's very important for that to be the best school, because I am sick and tired of the best schools to be, only for the kids that have the resources, right?
Mhm.
So that's my main priority right now. And then aside from that, like I said, we're working with a team to develop our website and to create a platform where children all over and teachers as well could be trained in learning to code in Spanish.
So I wanted to ask you, Milka, as part of your vision, what do you think about connecting students, like your students, with other schools that are also focusing on coding, right? And AI and all of the things that you're doing. Have you thought about that? Kind of like creating this global, citizen and collaboration for your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say is schools in the Dominican Republic or abroad or all over the world?
I'm thinking, like, abroad, right? So, there are lots of schools, like, the Girls That Code back in New York City that are doing some wonderful work, and like connecting, children from both sides to kind of like, do some shared learning and do some shared creation, and, an opportunity to experience and have different perspectives.
I think that would be wonderful. I think that one of the challenges with that is language. So our
Mm.
kids just started taking English, in February as part of the program. So I think as their English level develops, that'll be wonderful. But also, we could actually take maybe a program. I know that there's a program in Boston, for example, that has a bunch of Dominican kids that are learning to code. For them to like kind of share their experience, and then also for them to be able to speak in Spanish, because right now it's really hard if the kids don't speak Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, that's terrific. Amazing. Milka, thank you so much. One question that just popped up for me, and I'm sure the team and people listening, is, in this everyday that you're doing with the children in Yamasa, I'm sure you do, but I'm sure everybody wants to hear from you. Do you see your father? Do you see your father's yearning for learning in the children that you encourage every day.
I see my father all the time. I
Yeah.
see him all the time. I see him in that little girl that the other day, literally, it was raining so much, and she sent me through WhatsApp. She sent me the picture of the motorcycle that had a bunch of mud, and she was like, "Profe, I can't go to school today. This is why, because it's just we weren't able to get there." Right?
Yeah.
Like, I see him there, and I see him every single student that that looks like they really, really want to learn. That type of student that is like always asking. But we have a bunch of those. I see him in the school itself, and in all the dreams of the kids of Perfecto Labs and of every Dominican child.
Thank you, Milka. Thank you so much for joining our circle today. Thank you for continuing to inspire all of those young people and all of us. To all of you watching or listening, I leave you with a quote from the Dalai Lama, which is, "It's not enough to be compassionate, you must act." So we encourage you to act, to center our collective responsibility and our sense of community to help all of those around us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Milka, again. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or just leave us a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at TamboraDialogues and on Twitter at TamboraDialogues #1. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time in the Drum Circle. Take care, everybody.